Democratic field currently. Joining us this week, former state party chair for the Indiana Democrats, Robin Winston, former Marion County Republican chair and former state lawmaker Mike Murphy. We're also joined by a new face this week, Alexandra Hudson with Young Voices. She's also a former policy advisor for the Department of Education. And Adam Wren, who is, of course, a contributing editor for Politico and Indianapolis Monthly. What a week here, guys. A stunning turn of events, really, in just 1 week's time, both on Wall Street, the coronavirus fight, and on the campaign trail, with a lot of Hoosiers on the front lines here in some really crucial moments.
That's right, Dan. Yeah, in South Bend last Sunday, I was there as Pete Buttigieg withdrew from the race, and he really withdrew with sort of maximum leverage. And by endorsing Joe Biden on Monday in Dallas,
he made a big impact.
Yeah, he really made a big impact. Biden talked about him in sort of a loving, fatherly way. You wonder if he's going to be a potential vice presidential candidate. And then you look at our current vice president, Mike Pence. He's really leading the charge on coronavirus. And what he does over the next few months will really define or halter his legacy in the vice presidency.
Let's talk about the coronavirus. You often hear about the politics of fear, but there are things people genuinely fear that transcend politics, and that may be what we're seeing here with coronavirus this week, especially as it hits here now in Indiana. But a lot of people wondering, how much do we need to fear this? Is it something to fear?
We just heard, a few hours ago, Governor Holcomb declared a state of emergency with the first case of coronavirus being announced here in Indianapolis. And I think it's interesting to think about the way in which these crises like this, they really show us who we really are. And I think as a country, as a nation, what we value, and I think we can just, compare China's approach to how they've responded to this crisis from the beginning. It's been disproportionate and almost dystopian. Dr. Li, back in December, the first truth teller, he came forward and he published about the coronavirus, that the Chinese authorities came to his door and forced him to recant.
It's been a situation.
Right, and now they're going door to door and they're rounding people up, but we don't have that here. We have free-flowing information in America. That's a lot to be grateful for.
How does it impact an election year, Mike, in the midst of everything else happening?
Well, here in the state of Indiana, we really don't have a race for governor, let's be honest. Right. The governor has $8.5 million. Last I heard, Woody Myers had 60 or 70,000. Recent Indiana chamber polling shows Holcomb with a historic high job approval rating of 71%. They've never seen that before, even when people like Evan Bayh and Bob Orr were governor. You just don't get that high. This guy is the next governor, and what he does is, as far as the coronavirus goes, is exactly what he did this morning. Declare the emergency, let your health professionals handle it. And as Dr. Bach said a week or so, we've got this handled. We've done this before with other viruses.
Robin, what do you make of the week that was? Going back to Super Tuesday, too, there'd been all this talk of a contested convention potentially. You almost have to wonder now if our primary in May is even going to be contested. Depends if Sanders can win in some states like Michigan this week.
I think that Joe Biden did very, very well, obviously, on Super Tuesday. He's going to do very, very well this coming week. And I think he's going to make sure that Indiana will have a primary, but I don't think it'll be nearly as contested as 2008 was, even 2016. He has brought a level of normalcy to this. People called me after South Carolina and that hadn't returned because I'm supporting him, hadn't called me back and what can I do to help? I think you're finding more and more people
want to talk to you about it a few weeks ago.
No, before he was dead in the water, Robin, you made a mistake. Now it's like, let's see what we can do to get him elected.
What does this say? You had Bloomberg and Steyer in the race, spending a lot of money. The impact of their campaigns basically falling apart right on contact.
Yeah, I think if you look at Bloomberg, the results are a little bit different. Pundits sort of rushed to say that his candidacy and he wasted all that money after spending, roughly more than $500 million. But he actually won delegates in a short amount of time. He wasn't in the race that long. So a political science experiment for the ages, I think. And I think he did move the meter. He picked up more delegates ultimately than Pete Buttigieg did, who'd been running for 2 years.
But certainly didn't last as long as he'd hoped. What do you make of that
encouraging.
political
it shows
science
us that,
experiment?
Democracy works. Elections can't be bought. I think that's an important takeaway.
Where are we headed next?
Well, what this shows, though, we're missing the big point in all this. What this shows is the Democratic Party, the supposed party of diversity, ran off through a vote every woman, every African American, every Latino, every Asian, every gay candidate, and they got two guys who are almost 80 years old to represent the party of diversity. I don't know. I mean, you must be disappointed here, sir.
I'm not disappointed. You just named all the diverse groups that are not in your tent at all in your party. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we are diverse, and the fact that we have candidates. By the way,
you're choosing two old white guys.
Yeah, but we actually nominated a female for president. You guys have never done anything like that. So, you know, we have been diverse from day one. Please, I appreciate your commitment to diversity on our side, but we are doing okay. We're doing very, very well. I will say this, though. What you just said is exactly right. It showed that democracy matters. When you come down to it, people want to go vote.
Let's talk about civility in politics here a little bit. You had a situation this past week involving State Senator Mike Young being criticized for what Democrats said was a homophobic comment on Facebook about Pete Buttigieg. You also had Chuck Schumer facing criticism for comments seen as threatening two Supreme Court justices, with Senator Braun and others calling for Schumer to be censored. Alexandra, you've written a lot about civility in politics. What do you make of those events this week?
I think we can take encouragement. We hear a lot that civility in politics is lacking today, but the responses to both Senator Young's unfortunate comments and to Chuck Schumer's threats against two Supreme Court justices was swift and pretty universal. So it's nice to know that we still have these standards of what is appropriate in public discourse that do exist. And also, it's important to remember that the voice of the people matters. Like, politicians say what they think will play well with the voters. And so it's an important role for voters to hold our leaders accountable. And I think we've done that in these circumstances.
Certainly politicians always find a way to get their foot caught in their mouth. We've seen that happen before.
That's right. You know, the difference is, I think, in this case, is that Chuck Schumer quickly apologized for his